Hello, fellow Robo Capitalists. Hope you're well. Time to do the weekly wrap up, and we have a lot to talk about. It's all about the labor market, it's all about the inflation data, and today it was all about consumer sentiment. So let's get into the revisions first and foremost. I'm sure you guys have heard about this, but just in case you haven't, or even if you have, let's dive into the details because I think that was really the big news of the week. You guys know from watching my videos that I think the number one indicator for the economy, forget the stock market, who knows where that's going, but the number one indicator for the economy is the labor market. So we got to pay attention to that. So let me do the screen share. There we go. And we're going to shoot over to the BLS. Here we go, guys. This came out on Tuesday. The first benchmark revision. So how this works is they come out with the monthly numbers and then they give a revision for the prior 2 months. And so they end up doing like the first one, then a couple revisions. But then once a year, they do this benchmark revision. And then, believe it or not, they do a final benchmark revision, which I think comes out in January or February of 2026. Now, this benchmark revision was for the months of April 2024 through March of 2025. So that's what we're looking at right here. That's what we're dealing with. And as you guys can see right here, bam, minus 911,000, almost negative 1 million jobs. And what this really means, I think the most important components here, not only was the labor market way, way weaker than we were led to believe, but there were a couple months, even in 2024, that were actually negative. Check this out. Go right over here and want to do a big shout out to my good buddy Dana Samuelson over at American Gold. I think it's Dana's company. He sent me this chart. He posted it on Twitter. I told him I was going to steal it. So what he did is went through the month by month, and the blue line or the blue bar, these were the headline numbers. And the yellow was the revision, and the red was where it was revised into the negative. Now, keep in mind, this only goes to March right here. So we have not gotten the benchmark revisions for April, May. We won't get that until next, whatever it is, next next September. And but we've gotten the revisions, the monthly revisions, and that's what brought this June down to a negative 13,000. Now keep in mind, this started at a positive 147, a positive 147, and now it's down to a negative 13. So you just see this huge downward trend in the labor market. And I went back and did a study where I looked at the 1970s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s. And I said, okay, how many times do we have an actual negative non-farm payroll where we're not into a recession? The punchline is it's rare. It does happen, but it's rare. And usually it only happens if we have a big weather event or, a massive employer like Walmart. They have a huge strike or something like that. That might be applicable to, was there a big weather event? I can't remember. But it definitely wouldn't explain the trend, and it definitely wouldn't explain the negative 13,000. And even if it was one of these months, it was not both of these months as far as October 2024 and August of 2024. So the labor market is getting very, very weak. And as a result of, as you would imagine, the interest rates really started to go down or continued down from all the bad labor market data we got last week. So if we go over to the 10-year Treasury yield, and I'll just do a 5-day chart, as you would expect, we start up here around, well, I guess it wasn't down that much, but for the week it was down about 5 basis. Not even that. What am I doing here? Okay, yeah, maybe down 3 or 4 basis points. So not too much, but the surprise, because and one of the reasons why it wasn't down further, because it was taking a little bit of a breather from how much it came down last week. So here's what I'm talking about. Like, remember the JOLTS numbers, the ADP, the non-farm payrolls, it just fell off a cliff. It goes down 25 basis points. So you're going to have some short selling there, and you're going to have some people taking profits. It's got to take a breather. Nothing goes down or up in a straight line. I think that's what this week was all about, until you got to the CPI data, which was really fascinating. Actually, before we get there, let's go over to the calendar, and we want to look at the PPI, because the PPI month over month was shocking.